because our goal is to shut down the person to where they're non-functional, where they're either unconscious, dead, or they're injured in such a way that you can safely turn your back on them and get into the other threat. The assumption that we made was that whenever we train is that whoever we're training, we assume they're going to be facing multiple attackers. Those attackers are going to be bigger, faster, and stronger, and they're going to carry tools. They're going to carry weapons.
When violence is the answer, it's the only answer. That's not just a quote, but also a slogan that our next guest has turned into a brand. And even more than that, the title of a best-selling book. That's right, it's Mr. Tim Larkin, a self-defense expert with a background in both the military and civilian life. He's a professional with a wealth of knowledge, teaching others to manipulate their body to quickly and effectively induce injuries in asocial violent situations. And the creator of target-focused training. And it's time to go in depth on the merits of this training and learn even more. Kung Fu Chronicles special guest today, someone who is a renowned military vet, author, self-defense expert, and close combat expert as well, founder of Target Focus Training, and also the author of a few books, including How to Survive the Most Critical 5 Seconds of Your Life, and of course, When Violence is the Answer, one of my favorites, and also a guy who's voted 2011's Black Belt and Black Belt Magazine Self-Defense Instructor of the Year. Mr. Tim Larkin is here with us. How are you, sir?
How you guys doing?
Good. Really good. And so just so you know, I am a martial arts instructor as well as my friend here, Sifu Gus. And I have Gus here with me today because usually I do this solo, but he is the guy who first recommended your book, When Violence is the Answer, to me. And that book is just, got to tell you, love it from beginning to end, all the stuff in there. So it's been kind of critical to my training as well. So
I got to tell you, man, I really appreciate that because you know how balkanized like combat sports and martial arts can be. And when people are open to just hearing the message, because it's not, as you guys know, it's just general principles that I put out there. It's not about a style or anything like that. And it's really cool when other instructors, apply it the way they see it. That's how I see me. I see myself as somebody who has some technical information and you guys use it as you need it,
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll get the audience initiated here because for those that haven't read the book, I know a lot about your story, but can I start with a little bit of your upbringing and how you started focusing on self-defense training, obviously from your transition from the military and all that?
Yeah. Basically, I was a Navy kid. My dad was was an officer in the Navy. Last deployment that he had was in 32nd Street in San Diego. We lived in officer housing, which was over in Coronado. And my backyard literally was a chain link fence, a little highway, and across the street was like this amazing obstacle course. And my brother and I had no idea what the hell it was, but we wanted to get over there. So we took our bikes, we went across the street. They wouldn't let us on through the gate. So what we did was we threw a piece of carpet over the concertina wire and we jumped over and we started every day going over there and playing on the obstacle course. Turns out that was the BUDS course, the SEAL course for training. And they used to kick us off all the time. And so that was my intro to, into the military, to the special operations side of the Navy. And I just thought it was amazing that these guys get paid to do what they got to do. And so at a very young age, I got introduced to that. And that kind of, colored everything. As far as my martial arts background, my grandfather was a South Boston boxer, really successful guy, but he taught us boxing from, since we were little kids. And so that was my first, martial art combat sport. And everywhere I went in the Navy, my dad, we lived all over. At the bases, the young Marines were always teaching us some form of martial art. Usually it was either judo or, one of the Korean arts back then. And of course, boxing that was there. So that's really kind of where I came up from. It was all obviously pre-UFC. But it was great. It was really, as a young man, it was cool because, your dad's gone on deployment and yet you got all these, it's like these young uncles basically, teaching you. And it was a really cool experience.
Very nice. But then you actually, you were in the SEALs program, but then you had an accident there, right? And isn't that what kind of turned your life around, turned towards teaching a little bit more?
I got to tell everybody, I told you, I saw this. I was about 12 years old when I got introduced to it. My whole life was that. That's all I was doing was preparing, to do it. So I knew everything there was to know about SEAL training. The only deal I had to make with my father was that I'd go to university and get a degree and go in as an officer.
Right.
So I do that. I went to USC, and it was great. I went all the way, and I'm gonna give you a quick version of this because I think it's important for people to know. So I was full of myself. I really was. And in school, they called me the Spartan.
This is Sparta!
And I just, I was doing, 1,000 burpees and everything every day. I was just, all I did was prepare for it. I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to get out of school so I could start.
Right.
So at the very end, on my senior year, I put my application in. I was up against 2,500 guys who qualified for 2 slots.
Wow.
And so I had another advantage that my junior year, I went and did a exchange program at London School of Economics. And I was working out at the embassy gym in London every day as a young kid. And I met all the special operations guys, the FBI guys, the CIA guys, and of course there were military guys. And one of them was a SEAL commander. Right. And he took me under his wing, and these guys were great. And he told me when I was going to apply, not only did he give me a recommendation, but he also gave me the ins and outs. And so when I realized I was up against 2,500 guys, I said, oh man, everybody's going to look the same on paper. What can I do? Well, I had a buddy that was in Washington, D.C., going to school. I went and stayed with him, and I had been working. There's a person called a detailer. He's the person that assigns you.
Okay.
And he's the guy that's going to make the decision on who those 2 guys are, but he's not the real power base. The real power base was his secretary, Margaret. She had been there for like almost 30 years. And so I started working Margaret. God, probably as a sophomore. I would just call her up randomly, pretending to get information, stuff like that. I found out when her birthday was. I'd send her flowers and all that other stuff.
Hello, this is Margaret.
So sure enough, when I found out, oh man, what the competition was going to be like, I told her, I said, I happen to be coming to DC for something. I wasn't doing anything. I was just going out there. Right. But I made it sound like it was official,
Right.
So I go out there, hey, could I come by? Mm-hmm. And they said, yeah. She goes, well, listen, I don't, Mr. Larkin, I don't know, she always called me Mr. Larkin, Midshipman Larkin. And I said, well, listen, Margaret, I'd like to come by at least say hi to you. And so I came by. So I came by on a Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, I got there right at 8 a.m. And she said, okay. She said, sit there. And I sat on a little couch outside the office, and I was ignored. Wow. Nobody talked to me. At 5 o'clock, everybody leaves, because it was kind of an admin position out there. It wasn't like a full deployment thing or anything. So everybody just leaves, and they don't even look at me. They just walk. And Margaret says, oh, well, I'll see. Can I come back tomorrow? Yeah, of course you can come back tomorrow. So I'd come back tomorrow. And the only thing she'd do for me is she'd help, she'd get me some lunch or she'd give me a drink or something like that. But nobody talked to me. They absolutely ignored me. Wow. So I stayed. So, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, same thing. I'm sitting there, and at 4:55 on Friday, the Commander Golay, who ended up being a really good friend of mine later, sticks his head out. He goes, Midshipman, are you still here? And I said, yes, sir. He goes, if I see you, will you leave and never come back? And I said, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And he goes, all right, get in my office. So I get in the office, and he goes, okay, what do you want? And I said, well, sir, I just know you have a hard decision to make. Everybody looks the same on paper. I just want you to know I'm not going to quit. And he just paused. He looked at me, and he said, that's it? And I said, yes, sir. He goes, okay, I heard you. Goodbye. And so I left, and my head's hanging down. I'm like, oh man, I blew it. I absolutely blew it. And I'm walking down the alley, not the alley, but the hallways. And it's one of the Navy building is just this huge bureaucratic building. It's just totally miserable. And I'm walking down this horrible, alley. It's a long walk back to where I have to go and everything. And all of a sudden I hear this, Larkin. And one of the young officers that was there, who was waiting to go to Bud's, runs down the hall after me, and he's kind of like smiling and everything. And he goes, hey, I just want to tell you something. He goes, you had it Tuesday night. We just wanted to see how long you'd stay.
You got the job.
So they were just screwing with me, you know? So
Yeah.
I went there. Now, the reason I tell that story is because, okay, now you know the intensity of how bad I wanted it. And all I can tell everybody is, if there's something that you really want, leave everything on the mat, you know, just go for it. You know, it can hurt. So yes, I did get one of the 2 slots. It was great. Cruise through training. I was so full of myself, guys, because, you know, I had an unfair advantage. I'd known this stuff since I was 12. And so we won Hell Week. We did everything. I was cruising. I had 1 dive left in 3rd phase, which is the 3rd phase. Back then, 3rd phase was dive training. And I had to do I remember it was a Tuesday. I had to do a dive, and my ears were clogged and everything. I felt, you know, I was pretty sick, but I was like, screw it, I'm going to do this dive, because they started giving us weekends off. Like, I'm not going to give up a weekend and come back here and do a dive. I'm gonna, you know, typical, you know, 21-year-old knucklehead. And I'm like, okay. So sure enough, I go and I force the dive and I blow my ears. And I could tell as soon as the corpsman looked in my ears, I was done, you know. And I was going to SEAL Team 4. I had that was the premier team to go to out of Buds, because back then, if you guys like watch shows like Narcos,
yeah,
that's that was my time. I'm telling you guys how old I am now, but you know, but that was what we were working. They were working Operation Snowcap, and everybody wanted it because that was the only place anybody was getting any action. So sure enough, I lose my slot. They put me in. They want to see if I heal up. They loved me though. They and what I mean by that, they really liked. I did. I performed very well. I was very motivated. They were really, you know, they were actually very cool to me. And they sent me to intelligence school in Dam Neck. Dam Neck also is where then SEAL Team, it was called SEAL Team 6 back then, was housed. And so it's really interesting because you got the intel community and then you have special operations right there. So I go back, I get trained up as a Naval Special Warfare intelligence officer, and I come back and I work directly for the Admiral. Things had changed and the new command came up. So I'm working for the Admiral of the SEAL Teams. And he's redoing everything back then because it was when we came into Joint Special Operations Command. It was a really interesting time to be in the Special Operations community. So I did really well, and I went, I put my papers in again because they liked me. I did really good, you know, my intelligence work and everything, and there were a lot of interesting things I was doing, and I had no business having this position. I was the most junior member on staff, and I had a position that probably was at least 3 or 4 ranks above me, you know, that I was doing because we were so short on personnel back then. I had modified grooming standards. It was really cool, you know. So anyways, I got the rest of the staff to back me to try to get a waiver for my ears to get back in. You know, that's how freaking arrogant I was.
Wow.
But it worked. It worked. So I get all the way up to the Admiral, and the Admiral says to me, he goes, wow. He goes, Mr. Larkin, he goes, I'm really impressed. He goes, these are some impressive recommendations. He goes, you know, the personnel that I have here, he goes, these are the cream of the crop. He said, you know, these men have all recommended you. He goes, I just got one question for you. And I go, yes, sir. He said, you know how it works. You know that when you're briefed as an officer on a mission, that you have the majority of the information. Your team chief will probably have the other half, but you'll probably have information nobody else has. He goes, so when you're in a sub and you're locking out, and that means you're in a submarine, they fill it with water in the area and you pressurize it and lock out.
Right.
And he goes, it pressurizes. And he said, your ear blows again. And the mission has to go on, and your men have to go without all the information. He goes, what do you think about that? And it's just, I was stunned. I was just like,
wow.
You know, and he said, I got another question for you. If you were me, what would you tell you?
Wow. Yeah.
Man. And I just had to say, sir, I'd say no. And he just looked at me. He goes, that's why you got these recommendations. He goes, that's the type of person you are. Now, caveat on that. Kid 2 classes behind me, John Connor, got my slot. Okay, SEAL Team 4. Panama goes down. Patia Airfield. John's the first guy shot and killed. We lost 7 guys that day.
Wow.
I got the report on the command. I was there, and I came in and I saw that John had, was the first guy's name. Now we lost 7 guys, but John was the first guy. Now listen, I'm not saying that would have been me or anything like that, but it was crazy, that came in. Now, how does it work into everything that we're talking about? The fact that I was at that command changed my life. The fact that I blew my ears was life. I ended up doing what I'm doing today because of that injury. The other thing is injury to the human body. This is something I was invulnerable back then, and here was everything I put on. Nothing could stop me. Everything, but it was the first time I really had to deal with true injury to the human body, that I couldn't will my way out of it. I couldn't do anything. So again, it's strange. That also became the focus of what I now teach people to do, because what I learned is if you can understand, injury to the human body,
right,
it bypasses a lot of things, bigger, faster, stronger, which I was back then, and all those other things. So that was just this interesting focus. So I guess the reason I sell it to everybody is, sometimes what you think could be probably your worst situation could end up being a blessing and, give you on that direction. So the reason I'm sitting here today talking to you, the reason those books are there is all because of that injury.
Yeah. But that's a great summarization, because, even though I read a lot of what you're saying in the book, I didn't have all the caveats like you're talking about, and people's stories and why they do what they do are fascinating to me, especially in the world of self-defense, martial arts, because I started off in the traditional side, but I just mainly recently, in the last couple of years, added Krav Maga to my training because I wanted weapons, defense stuff added to it, and the stuff that you don't normally see, whether you take karate or whatever, you fill in the blank on the martial art. I felt like that was, had gaps in the training, so to speak. And then, years ago, I read Rory Miller's book, Meditations on Violence. And then fast forward a few years ago, I read yours. And so it's like that at least kind of stamped in my head, okay, I'm on the right path here. I'm like, at least my training is geared in the mindset of what you guys are kind of already laid out. But when you started your program, your target focused training, what were some of the components? Obviously, like really focusing on causing injury was one, but what are some other components that you found were most valuable when you were putting your program together?
Well, what was interesting was the guys that got together. The reason we did it was because the parameters, the teams, where I was at, Spec War Command. There's a guy, Roger Hayden. He was a senior master chief from Vietnam era, just a legend.
So we were the last 4 deployed platoon in Vietnam. That was November platoon.
And he was tasked with, hey, listen, the walls come down. We're not fighting the Soviets anymore. These guys had predicted, they said it's going to go back to tribes and blood. He said, we're going to get, people are going to get balkanized again. We're not going to have this monolith that we're going to be fighting anymore. We're going to be having all these, they predicted, obviously, things like Bosnia, Herzegovina, and then, of course, Afghanistan and all of that. They knew we were going to be doing house to house and putting hands on people again. And we hadn't done that since Vietnam. Hand-to-hand combat back then, I know it's kind of hard now to think of this because of the popularity of the UFC and everything, but it was really like denigrated. Like if you trained hand-to-hand combat back then, everybody thought you were just crazy. They go, if it gets, because the thought process back then was, if it gets down to hand-to-hand combat, you're screwed. Like you really screwed up if you're getting down there, which was an arrogant kind of Soviet-style era, mentality. So we started doing it. So we did a search. And so the reason they had me on was because, as I told you, growing up, they knew I had a really strong martial arts background. And also, I think I was a younger guy and I would be a good meat puppet for all the old guys, And that was it. It was certainly, I was not invited because I had any expertise in combat. I mean, here was a guy that got, I got injured in buds. That's basically my story. But they liked me and they invited me into this. So what was really cool was we looked at everything. But here was the parameters these guys were looking for. They were saying, okay, we know we have to do we have to create something that a guy is going to be 60 days, or let's say he's 60 days in deployment, in country. He's any kind of conditioning he came in is really kind of compromised because, he's probably, erratic sleep, really not, able to work out. All he can do is, just rely on the fact that he has his body weight and any of the kit that he's carrying, and he has to be able to, operate, but you have to be able to operate with all of your tools and everything, your weapons.
Right.
And so that was kind of the parameter. And what was interesting was we looked at, some amazing martial artists back then. And that's where everybody had a challenge. It was as soon as we brought in the actual mission, that's where things kind of fell apart. A lot of times, the parameters of whatever the martial art was, it wouldn't necessarily be comfortable with us. So we're, having a hodgepodge all this stuff.
Okay.
So I run into, I had a lot of, obviously I was working with a lot of different agencies back then, and one of them was the DEA. And the guys in San Diego were really active. Mm. And one of my buddies calls me up from DEA, and he literally said this to me. He goes, "Hey, Larkin, you guys still doing that punchy kicky shit?"
Let's punch and kick them.
I'm like, "Yeah, asshole. Yeah, we are, He goes, "Well, hey, man, we ran into this guy." He goes, "I think, he's a real asshole, but," he goes, "I think you'll like him." He goes, "I think it's kind of something you guys would want." He goes, "We just did a small course with him." And so he tells me about this guy that literally is in Pacific Beach. I'm living in Pacific Beach in San Diego, California. It's a subset of San Diego, a beach town. Okay. And literally he tells me it's like 4 blocks away from where I live. Oh, wow. And I'm like, "What?" He goes, yeah. He goes, "Check it out. I think you'll like it." So I go by. It's like a 900-foot studio. It's got carpet on the ground, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh my!" I thought he was screwing with me. The only thing that got me to go back was there's a little trifold that the guy had put up on the inside of the window that you could read, and I read it. In the guy's background, I saw that he was in 173rd Charlie in Vietnam. Okay. And I just knew those were the jungle fighters. Those were the guys that they left out. It was an experimental unit, combat unit. They saw extensive combat. And they were really, just like he himself was a tunnel rat. And that got me to go back. So I go back and I see these kids and they're all in like traditional gis. And so I'm saying they're all like college age kids, and now me, I'm looking like a San Diego surfer because I got the modified grooming standards. I went in, I had no military look at all. Because I just wanted to go in kind of low key. I walk in, sit in. The first thing I see is these kids are training, and this one kid comes in and he takes his forearm, slams it into the side of the guy's neck, grabs right around the neck as he comes in. He then knees him to the solar plexus, and as the guy bends down, a rubber knife comes out of nowhere and he starts stabbing the guy in the neck. Wow. And he just drops the body and he goes right into another one. I'm like, what? So then I'm watching these young kids, and I was around their age, but I was sitting there going, holy shit, we haven't seen anything like this, The guy was calling it Kung Fu, but it wasn't Kung Fu.
Yeah. That's
and listen, I love Kung Fu. I don't mean that. I just like,
no, we get
what,
it.
What is this? Oh no, I have a black belt in it, but it was like, what is this, Right. And so I'm thinking, oh man, I can't wait to see who this instructor is, because there's no picture on the trifold. Okay. And I'm going, this guy, I figure he's going to be like, in a samurai uniform, he's going to hover in or something. Right. So I see out of the back, I see a guy come around. He's like probably 160 pounds, maybe. He's like 5'7", 5'6", 5'7". He's got a Hawaiian shirt on. He's got 501 jeans and Floho flip flops on. He's walking out. I'm going, oh, I guess the janitor's here, Right. And he starts whispering in this kid's ear, and this other kid, no like formal instruction really. He's just kind of adjusting people. And I go, holy crap, this is the guy.
So you're the one.
And so I meet him, and he was probably one of the most interesting individuals I've ever met in my life. Completely functioning sociopath. But and the reason my DA buddy said he's an asshole, but you'll like him, one of the skill sets I probably have that's really good is I can talk to sociopaths. I can talk to really violent people who normally don't open up. Right. And they trust me, and I can get good information out of them. And people are always me. They go, why does that guy like you? Like, everybody else is scared shitless of one guy, and I'm like, why? And I had a lot of people that around me like that because I found them fascinating. Yes. Oftentimes, what it was they had information, and they were often ignored because their information was so good and so direct, but it made people wildly uncomfortable. because it was just violence, basically. It's various forms of violence, whether it's a gunfighter or whether it's a combat fighter or something like that. And to me, I was always interested in direct results, Yeah. I guess because my grandfather was like that. My grandfather was very much all about that. This guy was just, he had done a lot. He killed a lot in the war, came back. He hooked up in LA with a former triad guy in LA. And this guy really understood. He liked him because he knew he killed. And so this triad guy, really, they got along very well. And Jerry did very well in the system. But Jerry came to it as a killer, Right. And so he was there. So Jerry, he very much understood injury to the human body as empirically. He was not formally trained, not formally educated. He saw arcs and angles others couldn't see.
Okay.
So after about 6 months of training, I did not say anything to my guys because here I am, the most junior guy. What am I going to say? Hey guys, I found the guy.
Right.
No combat experience, But they noticed I was moving differently. They noticed I was doing things differently. And one day Roger Hayden came up to me and goes, "What are you doing?" And I go, "Well, about Weemy, Master Chief." And he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, no, I'm just training." He goes, No, you're moving differently. He goes, "Where are you training?" I said, "Well, I met this guy. Who did you meet?" I said, "Well, he's Army. He's an Army guy from me." He goes, "What was he in?" I go, "Well, he's from 173rd Charlie." And that's Roger stood up and goes, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "We need to talk to him." So then that was my first oh shit moment because he hated lifers in the military. Like my guy, he thought anybody that stayed in the military was a moron. And he in particular hated the SEALs because he thought they were overrated. And he had no problem saying that,
Right.
So I'm sitting here going, "Oh my God, I got to take this guy into the skiff, it's a controlled area, and they're going to brief this guy on." Well, they checked out his bona fides and he was legit, and all of that. So that was my first, good. Okay.
Right.
And they were excited to talk to him. He comes in, and the reason I tell everybody this is we did not start this program with him because he was doing what you would say hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
He answered a question about a shipboarding incident that nobody could answer. It was 7 years old. A team of 6 guys went on and they took down a ship, and the guys lined up. When you see it in the movies all the time, when guys stack up outside a door and then they go in. Yes. Well, it was right outside the door. So what happened was the first guy went in. He got in fine. The second guy gets jammed up by one of the terrorists.
Yeah.
And he's in there holding up the whole train. The guy in the front, he's fighting for his life. He's in there and everybody's, coming down on him. And he's the only guy inside. They can't get past this guy. He was getting jammed like that. And back then he had an MP5, the guy was there. And so he's sitting there, and Jerry, it was really interesting. Jerry looks at everything. He doesn't even wait till the end. Now, the other thing that's interesting is he's not familiar with the modern weapons. He's still a Vietnam guy. So it wasn't like he knew anything about that. He just saw the arcs and angles. He lines everybody up. These, like I said, these legends of the SEAL team. I remember we're inside the skiff and he's got everybody lined up like that.
Yeah.
They mimic it. First guy goes in, second guy goes in. Jerry goes, "Drop back and pull." And drop backs and pull the weapon. The weapon pulls center line on the guy as he goes down, clears the door, and the rest of them are in right away.
Okay.
And that's when everybody said, "Great, we're going to do a pilot course." They didn't need to see anything else.
Okay.
And that's so I try to make that very clear to people that he answered a real question. Right out of the bat, that was absolutely that nobody else had been able to answer, and
there was
not just other martial artists, but I mean, combat guys couldn't figure this one out, and it was just clean, it was just a really clean thing. So that's what got the pilot course. That was the inception of what now is, 30 years later is what I do, and we've evolved. The methods have improved over the years. The principles have always stayed the same. Okay. And it really revolves around the idea of injury to the human body. The gold standard for what we do is we needed one place to look. I go, where can we get consistent information that is objective? And we found the most objective information on human injury that we can find is sports injury data. And the reason you look at sports injury data is because it's humans colliding with humans, and humans colliding with the planet. And those injuries are injuries that you and I can replicate, whereas, you'll see sometimes, like in some of the books, I remember an old karate book where a guy's doing a side kick and then they're showing a femur crack. And it's like, not going to happen,
Yeah.
Unless the guy is methed out and the bones are super brittle, you're not going to crack his femur like that. So you see this, and there are consistent areas of the human body that show up in the data all the time. And so the methodology was, well, why don't we just concentrate on those areas?
Yes.
Because when somebody has trauma to those areas, we see it consistently. It ends the competition, but and the reason it ends the competition is because, think about it. If you have a combat athlete who's trained, for a whole camp to do a fight, the willpower's there. They don't want to quit.
Right.
And when they get, say, like a really, let's say a liver shot, or they inadvertently their ankle gets rolled and they snap their ankle or something, no matter what the will is, they have to respond to that trauma. And what's interesting about that is sports injury is where the competition ends. And for us, that's the first successful use of violence. And so that's the beginning for us, with what our goal is. Our goal is to shut down the person to where they're non-functional, where they're either unconscious, dead, or they're injured in such a way that you can safely turn your back on them and get into the other threat.
Right.
And so that's the standard. The assumption that we made was that whenever we train is that whoever we're training, we assume they're going to be facing multiple attackers. Those attackers are going to be bigger, faster, and stronger, and they're going to carry tools. They're going to carry weapons.
Right.
And so that's the parameters. And when you look at things that way, it becomes very easy to understand what you want to train for. Now, it's a very specific training. It has no use in combat sports or competition. There are things you can do that are legal, that we train that you could use, and they are successfully used in combat sport applications. But the goal is different. The goal in combat sport is not to maim, cripple, and kill.
Right.
Like I tell people all the time, the last time I looked at the UFC, and I'm here in Vegas, I go all the time. I have tons of friends that are in the UFC. Just great people. I love it. I love the sport. Right. But if you look at the rules, there were 31 rules last time I looked. 27 of those rules were outlawing direct injury to the human body. And so it's like when I took an improvised explosives course years ago, and I remember we went into Walmart, and basically all you had to do is you pick up one cleaner chemical or something, and it would say don't mix with X, and then you pick up another cleaner chemical that had X in it, and you go, oh great. And so you put these together and you can do that. And so the idea was, if you look at what's prohibited, you can see what's effective in a life or death situation.
Right.
And so how do you, and then the challenge is, how do you train that safely? How do you train it effectively? All those other things. So I hope that helps you guys, for your audience to kind of understand what the approach is here.
Yeah, no,
I get that all the time. I get it all the time about, well, you're not hitting a person hard enough. It's like, well, I don't want to hurt my workout partner. I don't want to injure my workout partner. But that is exactly the approach.
And there you go. Part 1 of our discussion with Mr. Tim Larkin. Just curious if you guys have read any of his books. Let me know in the comments down below. Also, are there any nuggets of knowledge you guys got from this particular video? Again, comment and share your thoughts, because sharing is caring. Share the video while you're at it too. And speaking of sharing, in part 2 of our discussion,
Shit, there's 2 of them.
we'll get even more in depth into Mr. Tim Larkin's target focus philosophy.
You do what you train. Right. And if you don't train for this scenario, how could you be like, if I don't train for the ring and all that stuff, I'm going to suck when I get in there. But same thing, if you don't train for these type of parameters of real life, and you don't train on real surfaces, that's the other thing is, you got to train on concrete, you got to train on gravel, you got to train on, asphalt. You got to put, not all the time, but you need to understand that training in the real world, A, it can be really useful, and B, there's a lot of stuff once you're training on the ground that
you know, you can get away with on the mat, but you don't want to do it if you're on the ground.
So stay tuned. Meanwhile, I just want to send out a big thanks to my Kung Fu Chronicle family. You guys are amazing, helping the channel grow. Don't forget to follow us on all of our social platforms. I'll leave them here, and everywhere. Oh, and please, guys, consider becoming a member, because I'm trying to load even more exclusive content that you can only find there just for you guys, because there's always stuff that we leave on the cutting room floor that I love to have a place for, and the membership is that spot. Plus, you'll have access to exclusive videos like this. Also, if you're into self-defense and awareness, as I think you are after watching this video, you're gonna love this video over here. And you're gonna love me. So guys, stay safe. See you all in the next round, part 2 of this discussion. And as always, keep punching.
Look at this one. Look at that one. Look, are you kidding me?
Hey, this is Tim Larkin. Thanks so much for watching Kung Fu Chronicles.